Welcome to today's captivating story, a tale of courage, redemption, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Imagine a town shrouded in secrecy, its streets filled with whispers of fear, where corruption runs rampant, and abuse of power silences the innocent. In this story, we'll journey through Hidden Valley, a remote community transformed by the actions of one man who turned public humiliation into a beacon of hope. But before we dive into this compelling narrative, I'd like to ask something of you. If this story inspires you, if it ignites a spark of hope or a call to action within you, please subscribe to our channel. And in the comments below, share a message of empowerment. Something like, "I stand for justice and compassion in all things." Your words can inspire others to join this mission of positivity and change. Now, let's begin. Hidden Valley sat tucked away in the heart of Arizona, its remoteness matched only by the tight grip of its self-proclaimed gatekeepers. A town of roughly 3,000 residents, Hidden Valley was the kind of place where time seemed to stand still. The sun baked its streets in a golden glow, yet the shadows of corruption loomed large, blanketing the town in a persistent unease. At first glance, the town seemed idyllic. Visitors were charmed by its rustic storefronts and the steady hum of its close-knit community. But peel back the facade and you'd find a place ruled not by law but by fear. Outsiders were met with suspicion, and the local police force acted less like public servants and more like a private militia. Under the leadership of Travis and Cole, two senior officers who had spent decades cementing their authority, the police enforced an unwritten rule. In Hidden Valley, we are the law. Residents whispered about their tactics, arbitrary fines, intimidation, and selective enforcement of rules to benefit those in their inner circle. Complaints rarely left the valley. Those who dared to speak out often found themselves on the receiving end of a lesson. For years, the residents bore this with resignation. After all, who would believe their stories? Hidden Valley was just a small dot on the map, easily overlooked by the outside world. Things began to change when strange occurrences started shaking the town's status quo. Rumors swirled about a new police chief being sent by the state, a nameless figure determined to uproot the old guard. Though nothing had been confirmed, the very idea was enough to rattle Travis and Cole. They intensified their patrols, ensuring everyone knew who was still in charge. One fateful morning, as the town awoke to its usual quiet rhythm, a man arrived in Hidden Valley. His name was Ethan Marshall, though no one yet knew his purpose. With a weathered suitcase in one hand and an air of quiet determination, he walked through the town square, drawing curious glances. His demeanor set him apart, calm, observant, yet unassuming. To the local officers, he looked like an easy target. The scene that followed would soon be seared into Hidden Valley's collective memory. Travis and Cole, interpreting Ethan's arrival as an act of defiance, decided to send a message. They accosted him in broad daylight, accusing him of trespassing. Ignoring his attempts to explain, they tied him to a wooden post in the center of the square, a humiliating spectacle meant to assert their dominance. As onlookers gathered, some dared to murmur their objections, but fear kept them rooted in place. A few quietly filmed the scene on their phones, unsure of what to do with the footage. Ethan remained calm throughout the ordeal, his eyes scanning the crowd with a mixture of understanding and resolve. What Travis and Cole didn't know was that Ethan was no ordinary traveler. He was, in fact, the new police chief sent to Hidden Valley to investigate the very corruption now on display. Ethan had arrived incognito to observe the town firsthand. What he witnessed confirmed everything he'd heard and more. This single act of humiliation would set into motion a chain of events that would forever change Hidden Valley. As the officers stood smugly before the crowd, Ethan delivered a simple yet powerful statement. "You'll regret this." The words hung in the air, confusing some and unsettling others. To Travis and Cole, they were empty threats from a powerless outsider. But Ethan's calm assurance suggested otherwise. The true turning point came when one of the onlookers uploaded their recording of the incident to social media. Within hours, the video gained traction, sparking outrage across the internet. The hashtag #Justice for Hidden Valley began trending. accompanied by waves of support for Ethan and condemnation of the officer's actions. Major news outlets picked up the story, drawing national attention to the tiny town. Residents who had long endured the oppressive regime began to feel a shift in the air. For the first time, their voices seemed to carry weight beyond the confines of the valley. Ethan's public humiliation became a rallying cry, a symbol of resilience in the face of tyranny. Civil rights activists arrived in Hidden Valley, journalists camped outside its borders, and questions flooded state officials about the future of the town's law enforcement. Behind closed doors, Travis and Cole scrambled to contain the fallout. They dismissed the incident as a misunderstanding, but their explanations only fueled the fire. The state governor, under pressure from the media, confirmed Ethan's position as the new chief and publicly announced an investigation into the department's practices. The events unfolding in Hidden Valley underscored a broader truth about human nature. Power, when unchecked, can corrupt even the most well-meaning individuals. Studies show that small, insular communities are especially vulnerable to such dynamics. According to a 2022 report by the Center for Law Enforcement Accountability, towns with less than 5,000 residents are 3 times more likely to experience systemic abuse of authority due to the lack of oversight and external scrutiny. Hidden Valley was no exception. What made this case stand out was Ethan's ability to turn a moment of profound degradation into a catalyst for change. His quiet dignity in the face of injustice reminded people of the values they'd long neglected: compassion, courage, and a commitment to doing what's right, no matter the cost. As the chapter closed on Ethan's arrival, it was clear that the battle for Hidden Valley had only just begun. The national spotlight now rested on this small town, demanding answers and accountability. For Ethan, the road ahead was fraught with challenges, but he remained undeterred. He had come to Hidden Valley not just to expose corruption, but to heal a broken community. Next, we'll uncover the secrets buried within Hidden Valley as Ethan launches his investigation. What dark truths will come to light, and how will the townspeople respond? Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this. The morning after Ethan's public humiliation, the air in Hidden Valley was thick with tension. Whispers swirled among the townspeople, each recounting the spectacle that had unfolded in the town square. For many, it was just another reminder of Travis and Cole's unchecked power, a display they had witnessed far too often. But for others, particularly the younger generation armed with smartphones and access to the wider world, it was an opportunity to ignite change. Ethan, now free from his bindings, spent the night at a modest inn just outside town. He didn't complain or wallow in anger. Instead, he wrote meticulous notes about every detail he'd observed, from the behavior of the officers to the reactions of the crowd. Ethan knew that understanding Hidden Valley's psyche would be key to dismantling the toxic culture ingrained in its law enforcement. Meanwhile, the video of his public humiliation continued to spread like wildfire online. By mid-morning, it had amassed hundreds of thousands of views. Ethan's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the aggressive arrogance of Travis and Cole, drawing outrage from viewers who demanded accountability. Civil rights organizations began tagging the governor's office, demanding swift action, while hashtags like #JusticeForHiddenValley and #EndCorruption trended across platforms. Hidden Valley, once an invisible speck on the map, had become the center of a national conversation. For Travis and Cole, however, the viral outrage was an unforeseen complication. They had spent decades wielding their authority without consequence, confident that their remote town would remain untouched by outside scrutiny. The sudden influx of attention was a direct threat to their power, and they scrambled to regain control. Their first move was predictable: intimidation. Later that day, as Ethan walked through the town square, observing its layout and interacting with a few curious residents, Travis approached him. This time, there was no public spectacle, only a tense confrontation. "You're not welcome here," Travis said, his voice low and venomous. "Whatever you think you're doing, it ends now." Cole stood a few steps behind, his hand resting conspicuously on his holstered firearm, a silent warning. Ethan didn't flinch. He met Travis's glare with calm resolve. "You're right," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "I'm not here to be welcomed. I'm here to do my job." He let the weight of his words hang in the air, his unwavering gaze unsettling the officers. Without another word, Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Travis seething. That evening, Ethan met with a small group of residents at a local diner. They spoke in hushed tones, careful not to draw attention. Most were reluctant to share their stories, fearing retaliation. But one woman, a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Harper, broke the silence. With trembling hands, she recounted how her grandson had been wrongfully detained by Travis after questioning the officer's actions at a traffic stop. "They let him go," she said, her voice cracking, "but only after keeping him locked in a cell overnight. He hasn't been the same since." Ethan listened intently, taking notes and offering quiet reassurances. "The only way we can change this," he said, "is together. Your voices matter, and I promise you, they will be heard." Mrs. Harper nodded, a glimmer of hope in her tear-filled eyes. As the meeting ended, Ethan's phone buzzed with a notification. A state official had reached out, confirming that he had full authority as the new chief of police and instructing him to assume his role immediately. It was the leverage he needed to begin dismantling the old regime. The next morning, Ethan made his first official move. He walked into the police station, now buzzing with activity thanks to the media frenzy outside. Officers paused to stare, their conversations falling silent as Ethan strode toward the front desk. Travis and Cole were nowhere to be seen. "Good morning," Ethan said, his voice echoing through the space. "I'm Ethan Marshall, your new chief. Effective immediately, all operations will be under my supervision." He paused, letting the announcement sink in. "I'll be conducting a full review of this department's practices. Any officer unwilling to cooperate can consider this their resignation." The room remained silent, the officers exchanging uneasy glances. Ethan knew he had a long road ahead. Transforming the culture of an institution steeped in corruption would not happen overnight. But he also knew the importance of taking a stand, however small, on day one. By midday, Ethan's presence had already begun to unsettle the status quo. Residents who had long felt powerless began approaching him, some to offer their thanks, others to share their stories. Among them was a young man named Daniel, whose family had suffered under Travis and Cole's reign for years. Daniel spoke with a mixture of anger and desperation, detailing how his father had lost their family business after refusing to pay protection fees demanded by the officers. Ethan encouraged Daniel to file a formal complaint, promising that his case would be reviewed. "This is your chance to fight back," Ethan said. "Not with violence or fear, but with truth. Together, we can build something better." As the day drew to a close, Ethan returned to his modest lodging, exhausted but resolute. The steps he had taken were small, but they marked the beginning of a larger movement. Outside, the streets of Hidden Valley buzzed with an energy not felt in years. People were beginning to believe that change was possible. But Travis and Cole were far from defeated. That night, they convened with a small group of loyal officers at a secluded spot on the edge of town. Their frustration was palpable as they plotted their next move. "This outsider thinks he can waltz in and tear everything down," Travis growled. "He doesn't know who he's dealing with." Their plan was simple: undermine Ethan's credibility by any means necessary. They began spreading rumors about his background, questioning his motives, and painting him as a manipulative outsider with a hidden agenda. It was a strategy they had used before, one that had effectively silenced dissent in the past. But this time, their tactics would face an obstacle they hadn't anticipated: the unwavering resolve of a community no longer willing to live in fear. As the chapter closed, Ethan sat at his desk, reviewing the notes and testimonies he had gathered throughout the day. He knew the battle ahead would be fierce, but he welcomed the challenge. For every story of abuse he uncovered, his determination grew stronger. Next, we'll delve into the secrets buried deep within Hidden Valley's history. What will Ethan's investigation reveal about the roots of corruption? And how will the townspeople react when the truth comes to light? Stay with us as the story unfolds. The day after Ethan's official appointment as chief, The impact of the viral video began to ripple beyond Hidden Valley. News outlets dissected every second of the footage, analyzing the brazen display of power and Ethan's stoic response. Public outrage escalated, with prominent figures speaking out and human rights organizations calling for a federal investigation. Hidden Valley was no longer a forgotten town. It was now a symbol of systemic corruption and the fight for accountability. Ethan understood the power of this exposure. While the outcry brought support, it also heightened the stakes. Travis and Cole were under immense pressure, and their desperation made them more dangerous. Ethan, however, saw this as an opportunity. Public attention meant his actions couldn't be swept under the rug, forcing transparency from all parties. Determined to build on this momentum, Ethan began his investigation into the department's operations. He started with public records, a task that would require both patience and discretion. Sitting in a cramped office at the station, he sifted through decades of incident reports, financial statements, and internal memos. Patterns began to emerge: missing funds, suspiciously vague incident descriptions, and a noticeable trend of targeting specific families and businesses. The documents painted a damning picture of systemic abuse, orchestrated and perpetuated by Travis and Cole. While Ethan worked quietly, the townspeople started to organize. Mrs. Harper, inspired by her conversation with Ethan, took it upon herself to rally her neighbors. They gathered in small groups, sharing their stories and brainstorming ways to support Ethan's mission. "We've been silent for too long," she declared during one meeting. "It's time we stand together." Among those inspired to act was Daniel, the young man whose father had lost his business. With Ethan's encouragement, he decided to file an official complaint, a step that terrified him, but also filled him with a newfound sense of purpose. When he walked into the station and handed his statement to Ethan, the chief's reassuring nod told Daniel he had made the right choice. But not everyone welcomed the change. Within the department, tensions simmered. Many officers, complicit in the corruption or simply too fearful to oppose it, avoided Ethan altogether. Others openly resented him, viewing him as an outsider disrupting their way of life. Travis and Cole, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to maintain their influence, quietly rallying their loyalists and spreading misinformation. Rumors began circulating around town, claims that Ethan was not who he seemed, that he had a questionable past, or that he was only in Hidden Valley to further his own ambitions. While some residents dismissed these rumors as desperate lies, others couldn't help but wonder. After all, trust had been a rare commodity in Hidden Valley for years. Ethan anticipated these attacks. He knew that dismantling a corrupt system wouldn't be easy, especially when those entrenched in power would fight tooth and nail to protect their interests. Still, he remained focused. With the help of a small but growing group of allies, he continued to gather evidence and build his case. One breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Maria, a soft-spoken clerk who had worked at the station for over a decade, approached Ethan one evening. Her hands trembled as she handed him a folder filled with documents she had quietly copied over the years. "I couldn't watch it anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The lies, the money, everything. I just didn't know what to do." Ethan thanked her sincerely, understanding the immense risk she had taken. The documents proved invaluable, revealing explicit links between Travis and Cole's activities and several prominent local figures. Business owners, town council members, even a few state officials had benefited from the officers' schemes. As Ethan pieced together the puzzle, his resolve deepened. Hidden Valley's corruption wasn't just a local issue. It was a microcosm of a larger problem, one that demanded systemic change. Armed with evidence, he prepared his first major move, suspending Travis and Cole pending an official review. It was a bold decision, one that would undoubtedly provoke backlash, but Ethan knew it was necessary. The announcement, made at a public town hall, drew a mixed reaction. Some residents erupted in applause, their relief palpable. Others, loyal to the old guard or simply wary of change, muttered their discontent. Travis and Cole, standing at the back of the room, exchanged furious glances but said nothing. Ethan met their glares head-on, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to their simmering anger. That night, Hidden Valley buzzed with conversation. For the first time in years, hope seemed to outweigh fear. People spoke openly about their experiences, finding solace in shared struggles. Social media lit up with messages of support, as well as heated debates between residents and outsiders. Ethan, however, knew the fight was far from over. Travis and Cole were not men who would go quietly, and the forces they represented ran deeper than most could imagine. Sitting in his modest room that evening, Ethan reviewed his plans for the coming days. He would need to stay vigilant, anticipate their moves, and keep the community engaged in the process. Meanwhile, Travis and Cole regrouped with their allies. The suspension was a blow, but it wasn't the end. They plotted their next steps, determined to undermine Ethan and regain their foothold. "He thinks he's won," Travis sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "But we're just getting started." As the night stretched on, the tension in Hidden Valley was palpable. Ethan, aware of the challenges ahead, found solace in the quiet determination of those who supported him. Change was never easy, but it was always worth fighting for. What secrets will the newly uncovered evidence reveal? And how will Travis and Cole retaliate? The battle for Hidden Valley is just beginning, and the stakes are higher than ever. Stay tuned as the story continues. The days following Travis and Cole's suspension were a wind of activity for Ethan and the residents of Hidden Valley. With the corrupt officers temporarily out of the picture, a cautious optimism began to creep through the town. People who had lived in fear for decades started to reclaim their voices. Ethan, however, knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle wasn't just against Travis and Cole, but against the deeply rooted systems and relationships that had allowed their behavior to flourish unchecked. Ethan focused his efforts on the evidence Maria had provided. The documents revealed decades of shady dealings, illegal fines imposed on residents, confiscated goods that conveniently vanished from storage, and payments funneled into the accounts of local officials. It wasn't just a story of two rogue officers. It was a web of corruption that implicated many of the town's most influential figures. Ethan understood that bringing them all down would require not just evidence, but the trust and cooperation of the townspeople. To that end, he organized a community meeting in the same town hall where he had announced the suspensions. This time, the turnout was even larger. The room buzzed with anticipation as Ethan stepped up to the podium, carrying a file filled with damning information. "Good evening," he began, his calm and deliberate tone silencing the murmurs. "What I'm about to share with you is not easy to hear, but it's the truth, and it's the first step toward real change." He detailed the findings, carefully explaining how Travis and Cole's actions had extended far beyond simple abuses of power. He named names, listing the local businesses and officials who had benefited from the corruption. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as Ethan outlined the scale of the wrongdoing. Some faces showed shock, others anger, and a few guilt. Ethan didn't shy away from the harsh realities, but he also emphasized the opportunity for redemption. "This isn't just about holding the guilty accountable," he said, his voice steady. "It's about giving Hidden Valley the chance to become the community it was always meant to be, a place where fairness, compassion, and justice are not just words, but principles we live by." As the meeting ended, residents lingered, talking in hushed but determined tones. Some expressed outrage at the betrayal they had endured, while others quietly began to distance themselves from the individuals implicated in the corruption. Ethan observed the crowd with a mixture of hope and resolve. He had planted a seed, but it would take time for it to grow. Meanwhile, Travis and Cole were not idle. From their self-imposed exile in a neighboring county, they worked to undermine Ethan's efforts. They tapped into their network of allies, spreading rumors and even bribing individuals to testify against him. Ethan was well aware of their tactics, but he refused to be distracted. Instead, he doubled down on his work, rallying the support of the community and leveraging the power of the media, which remained invested in the unfolding story. Ethan's next move was to confront the local officials implicated in the corruption. He began with Mayor Gerald Sims, a long-serving politician whose name had appeared in multiple questionable transactions. The meeting took place in the mayor's office, a grand but outdated room that reeked of authority and complacency. Gerald greeted Ethan with a forced smile, clearly uneasy about the conversation to come. "Chief Marshal," he said, gesturing toward a chair, "what brings you here today?" Ethan didn't mince words. "I think you know exactly why I'm here, Mayor Sims," he replied, placing a stack of documents on the desk. "These records show a direct link between your office and illegal activities carried out by the police department. I'm giving you a choice. Cooperate with this investigation or prepare to face the consequences." The mayor's composure faltered, his hands trembling slightly as he flipped through the papers. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered. "I had no idea," Ethan cut him off. "Spare me the denials. The people of Hidden Valley deserve better than excuses. If you want any hope of redemption, start by telling the truth." Faced with no viable alternative, Gerald reluctantly agreed to cooperate. Over the next few days, he provided additional records and testimony that further solidified Ethan's case against Travis and Cole. The mayor's actions, though self-serving, marked a significant turning point. For the first time, it seemed possible to hold not just the officers, but the entire corrupt network accountable. As Ethan's investigation gained momentum, so did the town's transformation. Inspired by his leadership, residents began organizing community events and initiatives aimed at rebuilding trust. They held open forums where people could voice their concerns and share their ideas for a better future. Mrs. Harper emerged as a key figure in these efforts, using her reputation as a respected elder to bring people together. "We've been through enough division," she said during one gathering. "Now is the time for unity." Even Daniel, once paralyzed by fear, found himself stepping into a leadership role. He helped organize a youth group focused on civic engagement, teaching the next generation about the importance of accountability and justice. "We can't change the past," he told the group during their first meeting, "but we can make sure it doesn't define our future." Still, challenges remained. Travis and Cole's allies continued to resist, and some residents remained skeptical of Ethan's motives. But with each victory, each truth uncovered, and each act of courage, the tide began to turn. Hidden Valley was no longer a town ruled by fear. It was becoming a community driven by hope. As the chapter drew to a close, Ethan received a call from a journalist who had been following the story closely. "Chief Marshal," the reporter said, "we've uncovered new information about Travis and Cole's operations. It looks like their corruption extends far beyond Hidden Valley. Can we meet to discuss?" Ethan's grip on the phone tightened as he processed the implications. The battle he had been fighting was about to expand, and the stakes had never been higher. Yet he felt no hesitation, only a renewed determination to see justice through. What new revelations will come to light, and how will they impact the fight for Hidden Valley's future? The journey continues, and the story is far from over. The journalist's revelation struck like a lightning bolt. Travis and Cole's corruption wasn't confined to Hidden Valley. It was part of a larger network of illicit dealings that stretched across the state. Evidence pointed to involvement in smuggling operations, laundering money through local businesses, and leveraging their influence to protect criminals in exchange for hefty payoffs. What had started as a battle for a small town's soul now hinted at a much larger conspiracy. For Ethan, this meant the stakes had risen considerably, but so had the opportunity to dismantle something far greater than he had anticipated. Ethan wasted no time. He compiled the journalist's findings alongside the evidence gathered in Hidden Valley and submitted them to state authorities. This sparked a chain reaction, with state investigators descending upon the town to corroborate the information. For the first time in decades, the crooked systems propping up Travis and Cole began to crumble under the weight of scrutiny. Still, Ethan knew that the town's healing wouldn't come solely from external forces. True change had to begin at the heart of Hidden Valley, within the very fabric of its community. The suspension of Travis and Cole was formalized into dismissals, and Ethan moved swiftly to implement reforms in the police department. He started with mandatory ethics training, designed not only to educate officers, but to root out those resistant to change. Transparency became the cornerstone of his approach. Financial records, arrest reports, and departmental policies were made available to the public, allowing the community to hold their police force accountable. Ethan also established an anonymous tip line, encouraging residents to report misconduct without fear of retaliation. But the most significant reform was the creation of a civilian oversight committee, a diverse group of residents, tasked with reviewing police actions and decisions. Mrs. Harper was among those appointed, her unwavering dedication to justice making her an obvious choice. "We've spent years living in the shadows of corruption," she said during the committee's first meeting. "Now it's our turn to ensure the light shines on every corner of this town." These measures weren't without resistance. Some officers, loyal to Travis and Cole or resentful of the new direction, chose to resign rather than adapt. Others tried to sabotage the reforms from within, leaking false information or sowing discord among the ranks. Ethan met these challenges head-on, refusing to let dissent derail his mission. "If you're here to serve yourselves, there's no place for you in this department," he said during a meeting with his officers. "But if you're here to serve the people of Hidden Valley, I promise you this: we will rebuild trust together." Outside the station, the community's transformation continued. Inspired by Ethan's reforms, residents began to reclaim their town from the grip of fear and apathy. Storefronts that had once displayed thinly veiled loyalty to Travis and Cole replaced their signs with messages of unity and hope. Public spaces, neglected for years, were cleaned and revitalized by volunteers. The youth group led by Daniel hosted workshops on civic responsibility, encouraging young people to take an active role in shaping the town's future. Ethan's progress did not go unnoticed. The media spotlight intensified, with reporters eager to document Hidden Valley's journey from a symbol of corruption to a beacon of reform. Documentaries and articles painted Ethan as a reluctant hero, a man who had turned humiliation into triumph. Ethan, however, remained humble, deflecting praise to the residents who had rallied behind him. "This isn't my victory," he told one reporter. "It's ours. The people of Hidden Valley deserve the credit for standing up and demanding better." Amid the progress, Ethan faced a personal challenge that tested his resolve. A former officer, once a close ally of Travis, approached him with a startling proposition. The man, burdened by guilt and fearing potential legal consequences, offered to testify against Travis and Cole in exchange for immunity. His testimony, if credible, could solidify the case against them and reveal even deeper layers of their corruption. But it also raised a moral dilemma. Could Ethan justify granting immunity to someone complicit in years of abuse? After much deliberation, Ethan agreed to the deal, seeing it as a necessary step toward justice. The officer's testimony proved invaluable, providing details that linked Travis and Cole to a network of illegal activities far beyond Hidden Valley. The revelations added fuel to the state's investigation, culminating in the issuance of arrest warrants for Travis Cole and several of their associates. When news of the arrests broke, Hidden Valley erupted in a mixture of relief and celebration. For many, it marked the end of an era defined by fear and oppression. Despite the arrests, Ethan knew his work was far from over. The scars left by decades of corruption wouldn't heal overnight. Some residents remained skeptical of the changes, their trust eroded by years of betrayal. Ethan made it a priority to address their concerns, hosting regular town hall meetings and inviting open dialogue. Slowly but surely, even the most skeptical voices began to soften, their guarded skepticism giving way to cautious optimism. As Hidden Valley rebuilt itself, the ripple effects of its transformation began to spread. Neighboring towns, inspired by the changes, reached out to Ethan for guidance on addressing their own challenges. Advocacy groups used Hidden Valley as a case study, highlighting the importance of community-led reform. What had once been a cautionary tale was now a source of hope for communities grappling with similar struggles. But even as Ethan celebrated these victories, he couldn't shake the feeling that a larger reckoning loomed on the horizon. The state investigation had uncovered significant links between Travis and Cole's activities and high-ranking officials, suggesting that Hidden Valley's story was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Ethan prepared himself for the battles to come, knowing that the fight for justice often demanded unwavering persistence. One evening, as Ethan walked through the town square, now bustling with life and laughter, he paused to reflect on how far they had come. The pole where he had been tied and humiliated had been removed, replaced by a small garden tended by volunteers. A plaque at its center bore a simple but powerful inscription: "In unity, we find strength. In justice, we find hope." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Hidden Valley was no longer just a town to him. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light could prevail. What lies ahead as the state investigation uncovers deeper layers of corruption? Will Ethan's fight for justice extend beyond Hidden Valley? And how will the town navigate its newfound identity? Stay with us as the story unfolds further. As Hidden Valley slowly began to heal, the echoes of its troubled past refused to fade quietly. Travis and Cole's arrests had dealt a significant blow to the old guard, but not everyone in the town welcomed the changes with open arms. A faction of residents and former officers loyal to the disgraced pair simmered with resentment, their whispers of dissent growing louder as reforms took root. For Ethan, this backlash was inevitable. Real change often meets resistance, especially from those who feel their power slipping away. The first signs of trouble emerged within the police department. Ethan had worked tirelessly to rebuild trust and foster accountability, but not all the remaining officers embraced his vision. Some resented the transparency initiatives, seeing them as threats to their autonomy. Others, emboldened by the loyalty they still held for Travis and Cole, began quietly sabotaging Ethan's efforts. Reports went missing, patrol logs were falsified, and anonymous complaints accused Ethan of overstepping his authority. None of the accusations held up under scrutiny, but their frequency was enough to cast a shadow of doubt over his leadership. Ethan's response was measured but firm. He called a department-wide meeting, addressing the concerns head-on. "I understand that change is difficult," he said, his voice steady but unyielding. "But we cannot allow old habits to undermine the progress we've made. If you cannot commit to the principles of justice and integrity, then this department is no longer the place for you." His words left no room for negotiation, and though they earned him the respect of many, they also deepened the divide with those still clinging to the past. Outside the station, tensions brewed among certain segments of the community. Small but vocal groups, fueled by misinformation and resentment, accused Ethan of bringing unnecessary scrutiny to the town. They painted him as an outsider with ulterior motives, someone who had disrupted their way of life for his own gain. This narrative gained traction in some circles, fanned by lingering fears and a reluctance to confront the uncomfortable truths that had come to light. Ethan refused to let these challenges derail his mission. Instead, he doubled down on his commitment to transparency, hosting town hall meetings where residents could voice their concerns directly. These gatherings often grew heated, with accusations and frustrations boiling over, but Ethan remained calm and resolute. He understood that anger was often a mask for fear, and he was determined to address the underlying issues rather than merely react to the symptoms. Amid the turmoil, Ethan found unexpected allies. Daniel, the young activist who had once feared standing up to authority, emerged as a powerful voice for unity. He organized a series of community workshops aimed at bridging the divides within Hidden Valley. "We're all here because we care about this town," Daniel said during one session. "Let's focus on what unites us instead of what separates us." His efforts began to bear fruit, with more residents coming together to discuss their shared hopes for the future. Mrs. Harper, too, played a crucial role in easing tensions. As a member of the Civilian Oversight Committee, she used her position to mediate disputes and encourage dialogue. Her wisdom and steady presence earned her the respect of even the most skeptical residents, and her unwavering support for Ethan became a beacon of stability in a time of uncertainty. Still, the backlash from within took a more sinister turn when Ethan discovered evidence of deliberate attempts to undermine the ongoing state investigation. A confidential informant revealed that some of Travis and Cole's allies were working behind the scenes to discredit key witnesses and obstruct the inquiry. Ethan knew that if these efforts succeeded, it could jeopardize not only the case against the disgraced officers, but also the broader fight against corruption. Acting swiftly, Ethan coordinated with state investigators to safeguard the integrity of the investigation. Witnesses were placed under protection, and additional security measures were implemented to prevent tampering with evidence. The informant's revelations also led to the discovery of hidden caches of documents, detailing years of backroom deals and illicit transactions orchestrated by Travis and Cole's network. These findings strengthened the case against them and provided further proof of the systemic nature of the corruption. Ethan's actions drew praise from many, but they also intensified the hostility from his detractors. Threats against him became more frequent, ranging from anonymous letters to vandalism at the station. Yet, rather than intimidating him, these acts only steeled his resolve. "If they're this desperate to stop us," he told Mrs. Harper during a late-night strategy meeting, "it means we're getting closer to the truth." The turning point came when Ethan uncovered evidence linking Travis and Cole's network to influential figures at the state level. These connections explained the breadth of their operations and revealed just how deeply the corruption ran. Ethan knew that exposing these ties would be a monumental task, one that would require not only ironclad evidence, but also the unwavering support of the community. Ethan decided to address the town directly, calling for a special assembly in the square. Residents gathered under the glow of streetlights, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Standing before them, Ethan spoke with a quiet intensity. "What we're facing isn't just a fight for Hidden Valley," he began. "It's a fight for justice that extends far beyond our borders. The corruption we've uncovered is part of a larger system, one that thrives on silence and fear. But we've already proven that silence and fear don't define us. Together, we can stand against it." His words resonated deeply, igniting a sense of purpose among the crowd. For the first time, many began to see their struggle as part of a greater movement, one that could inspire change far beyond their small town. As the assembly ended, residents lingered to discuss how they could contribute to the fight. Ethan watched with a mixture of pride and determination, knowing that their unity would be the key to overcoming the challenges ahead. But the battle was far from over. Ethan knew that the closer they came to the truth, the more resistance they would face. Hidden Valley's transformation had become a beacon of hope, but it had also painted a target on its back. As he prepared for the next phase of the fight, Ethan reflected on the resilience of the people he had come to call his own. They had faced darkness and fear, and yet they had chosen to stand together, proving that even in the face of adversity, light could prevail. What new challenges will emerge as Ethan uncovers deeper connections to the corruption at the state level? How will the town's unity hold in the face of growing opposition? Stay with us as the story continues to unfold. The assembly in the town square marked a turning point for Hidden Valley. Ethan's words had galvanized the residents, uniting them against the corruption that had plagued their community for so long. It wasn't just about removing Travis and Cole anymore. It was about reclaiming their dignity and proving that even a small town could spark meaningful change. But as the community found its voice, the fight grew more complex. Exposing the broader network of corruption required collaboration, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the truth. The Civilian Oversight Committee, led by Mrs. Harper, became a hub of activity. Residents poured in with testimonies, documents, and accounts of injustices they had endured or witnessed over the years. Many of these stories revealed patterns that had long been hidden, further implicating powerful figures outside Hidden Valley. Mrs. Harper, with her years of experience and calming presence, was instrumental in helping people navigate the difficult process of speaking out. "Your stories matter," she often reminded them. "They're the key to breaking this cycle." Among the contributors was Maria, the quiet clerk who had first provided Ethan with critical evidence. Bolstered by the support of the committee, she began sharing more details about her time at the station. Her meticulous record-keeping and first-hand accounts of Travis and Cole's operations painted a vivid picture of their reign, highlighting how they had exploited loopholes and silenced dissent. Maria's courage inspired others, and soon the committee had a wealth of information to work with. Ethan used this momentum to deepen his investigation, working closely with state officials and independent journalists. He pieced together the broader network behind Travis and Cole's activities. The trail led to a series of shell companies, all linked to influential business people and politicians. These entities had laundered money, funded illegal activities, and protected corrupt officials from scrutiny. Each revelation added weight to the case, but it also intensified the danger for those involved. The backlash grew more aggressive. Anonymous threats targeted not only Ethan, but also members of the Oversight Committee. Vandals defaced homes and businesses that supported the reforms, attempting to intimidate residents into silence. Yet the community refused to back down. Inspired by Ethan's leadership, they rallied together, holding vigils and marches to demonstrate their resilience. One particularly moving event saw hundreds of residents gathering in the square, each holding a candle to symbolize their commitment to justice. The sight of the flickering lights against the dark night sky was a powerful reminder of their unity. Daniel, the young activist, became a prominent figure in these efforts. His youth group expanded its reach, organizing town-wide initiatives to engage residents in the reform process. They hosted workshops on civic responsibility, created a newsletter to keep the community informed, and even started a mentorship program pairing young people with experienced residents like Mrs. Harper. "We're building something bigger than ourselves," Daniel told his peers during one meeting. "This is about creating a legacy of integrity and compassion." Ethan, while deeply moved by the community's spirit, remained focused on the larger battle. The deeper his investigation went, the more resistance he faced. Attempts to obstruct justice grew bolder, with critical witnesses being bribed or threatened into recanting their statements. Ethan responded by coordinating closely with state and federal agencies, ensuring that key players in the investigation were protected. He also worked to secure public support, leveraging media coverage to keep the spotlight on Hidden Valley and its fight against corruption. One particularly impactful moment came when a national news outlet aired a feature on the town's transformation. The segment highlighted the courage of its residents, the reforms Ethan had implemented, and the broader implications of their struggle. It struck a chord with viewers, many of whom began reaching out with messages of support. Donations poured in to fund community programs, and activists from across the country offered their expertise. Hidden Valley had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon for other communities grappling with similar challenges. The growing attention also brought new allies. Legal experts, civil rights organizations, and investigative journalists joined the fight, helping Ethan and his team build an airtight case against the corrupt network. Together, they uncovered connections that stretched far beyond the state, implicating national figures and exposing a web of exploitation that had operated in the shadows for years. Each new discovery brought the case closer to its climax, but it also heightened the stakes. Within Hidden Valley, the community's resolve was tested repeatedly. Divisions lingered, with some residents still loyal to the old guard or skeptical of the changes. These tensions often surfaced at town meetings, where debates grew heated and emotions ran high. Ethan, however, saw these moments as opportunities to foster dialogue. He encouraged residents to voice their concerns, listening patiently and addressing their fears with empathy. Over time, even the most hardened skeptics began to see the value in the reforms. As the investigation neared its conclusion, Ethan faced one of his most difficult decisions yet. Evidence had surfaced implicating several long-standing community leaders who had quietly supported Travis and Cole's activities. These individuals had been pillars of the town, known for their charity and public service. Exposing their involvement risked further dividing the community, but Ethan knew that justice required transparency. After consulting with the Oversight Committee, he decided to proceed, ensuring that the evidence was presented with fairness and sensitivity. The revelation sent shockwaves through Hidden Valley. Many residents felt betrayed, grappling with the idea that people they had trusted could have been complicit in the town's suffering. Yet, amid the turmoil, there was also a sense of liberation. The truth, painful as it was, had finally come to light, allowing the community to confront its past and move forward with clarity. As the chapter came to a close, Ethan received word that the case against the broader network was ready to move to trial. It was a monumental achievement, one that could bring justice not only to Hidden Valley, but to countless other communities affected by corruption. But Ethan knew that the trial would be just one step in a much longer journey. The fight for justice was ongoing, and the work of rebuilding trust and fostering unity would require sustained effort. As he stood in the square that evening, watching residents gather for another vigil, Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. Hidden Valley was no longer the place of fear and silence he had first encountered. It was a community that had found its voice, a testament to the power of resilience and collective action. With the trial on the horizon, what challenges will Ethan and the community face next? Will the fight for justice inspire lasting change? Or will new obstacles threaten to unravel their progress? Stay with us as the story reaches its climactic moments. The trial of Travis Cole and their network of collaborators was a spectacle that captured the nation's attention. As Hidden Valley's story spread, it became a rallying cry for communities grappling with their own struggles against corruption and abuse of power. Ethan, however, approached the proceedings with a measured resolve. For him, this was not a time for celebration, but a pivotal moment in a much larger battle. The courtroom was a stage where truth would face its ultimate test, and Hidden Valley's future hung in the balance. The trial began with the prosecution presenting the mountain of evidence amassed during the investigation. Ethan had worked closely with state officials and federal investigators to ensure every detail was airtight. Witnesses, including Maria and Daniel, testified with unwavering courage, recounting years of exploitation and fear under Travis and Cole's regime. Maria's meticulous records painted a picture too damning to deny, and Daniel's testimony highlighted the emotional toll of the corruption, giving a human face to the systemic injustices. Each day, new revelations emerged, exposing not just the depths of the officers' misconduct, but the intricate web of complicity that extended far beyond Hidden Valley. Bank records revealed payments funneled through shell companies, implicating high-ranking state officials who had turned a blind eye in exchange for kickbacks. The evidence was clear. Hidden Valley's struggle was part of a larger pattern that had been allowed to flourish due to greed and indifference. Outside the courtroom, the town buzzed with activity. Residents gathered in homes and public spaces to watch live coverage of the trial, their conversations filled with equal parts anger and hope. The case had united Hidden Valley in a way few could have imagined. For the first time in decades, people felt seen and heard, their collective voice powerful enough to demand accountability from even the most entrenched institutions. Ethan, though not called to testify directly, attended every session of the trial. His presence was a quiet but profound statement of solidarity with the community he had fought so hard to protect. He sat alongside residents who had once feared speaking out, offering reassurance with a steady gaze or a nod of encouragement. For many, Ethan had become a symbol of resilience and integrity, embodying the values they aspired to reclaim. As the trial progressed, the defense attempted to sow doubt by painting Ethan as an opportunist who had exploited the town's struggles for personal gain. They pointed to his initial anonymity, questioning his motives for coming to Hidden Valley. But the strategy backfired spectacularly. Residents, journalists, and advocacy groups quickly rallied to Ethan's defense, highlighting his unwavering commitment to justice. Testimonials poured in from across the country, with people sharing stories of how Hidden Valley's fight had inspired them to confront challenges in their own communities. The prosecution's closing arguments were a powerful summation of the case. They reminded the jury and the nation that the trial was about more than punishing a few bad actors. It was about affirming the principles of justice, integrity, and accountability, and showing that even the smallest voices could spark profound change. As the jury deliberated, the tension in Hidden Valley was palpable. People gathered in the square, their anticipation a testament to how much the outcome meant to them. When the verdict was finally announced, the crowd erupted in a mix of relief and elation. Travis Cole, and their accomplices were found guilty on multiple counts, with sentences ranging from lengthy prison terms to substantial fines. The courtroom scene was broadcast live, capturing the raw emotion of the moment as residents embraced one another, tears streaming down their faces. Hidden Valley's long nightmare was over, and justice had been served. But for Ethan, the verdict was not the end of the story. The trial had sent a powerful message, but it had also revealed how deeply systemic corruption could run. Inspired by Hidden Valley's success, other towns began reaching out for guidance, seeking to address their own challenges. Advocacy groups launched initiatives to replicate Ethan's reforms in similar communities, using Hidden Valley as a blueprint for grassroots change. Back in town, the spirit of transformation continued. Daniel and his youth group expanded their mentorship program, partnering with organizations in neighboring towns to promote civic engagement. Mrs. Harper, ever the guiding force, led workshops on community building and conflict resolution, ensuring that Hidden Valley's progress would not be undone by future disagreements or power struggles. Ethan, too, found himself at a crossroads. The success of the trial had drawn attention to his leadership, with offers coming in from advocacy groups and government agencies eager to harness his expertise. But his heart remained in Hidden Valley. He had come to see the town not just as a place to reform, but as a home, a community that had embraced him even in its darkest hour. After much deliberation, Ethan decided to stay, dedicating himself to ensuring that the reforms he had implemented would endure. One evening, as the sun set over the square, Ethan joined a gathering of residents celebrating the completion of a new community center. Built with donations and volunteer labor, the center symbolized the town's rebirth, a place where people could come together to learn, connect, and support one another. As he looked around at the smiling faces, Ethan felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Hidden Valley had not just survived, it had thrived, transforming its pain into strength and its silence into a powerful voice. The ripple effect of Hidden Valley's journey continued to spread, inspiring documentaries, articles, and even legislative efforts aimed at addressing corruption and empowering communities. For Ethan and the residents, the story was not just a tale of justice, but a reminder of what could be achieved when people came together with courage and determination. With Hidden Valley transformed and the world taking notice, what new horizons will the town explore? Will its legacy inspire lasting change far beyond its borders? Or will new challenges test its resilience? The journey may be far from over, but one thing is certain: Hidden Valley will never be the same. The transformation of Hidden Valley from a town gripped by fear to a beacon of justice had captured hearts far beyond its borders. Yet, as the dust settled from the trial, Ethan knew there was one last reckoning to face. Travis and Cole's convictions had exposed not only their personal corruption, but also the intricate network of collusion that had shielded them for years. The question now wasn't whether justice would be served. It was how far the pursuit of accountability would go, and whether Hidden Valley could sustain the momentum it had built. Even with their sentences handed down, Travis and Cole were not entirely defeated. From their prison cells, they filed appeals, claiming their convictions were the result of a biased investigation fueled by public hysteria. Their lawyers, well funded by the remnants of the corrupt network, worked tirelessly to discredit the evidence and the reforms that had taken hold in Hidden Valley. While their appeals faced long odds, they represented a lingering threat, a reminder that the fight for justice was never truly over. Ethan kept a close eye on these developments, aware of the impact they could have on the fragile trust the town had rebuilt. He worked with the Civilian Oversight Committee and legal experts to ensure that the reforms were fortified against any future attempts to undermine them. Public forums became a regular occurrence, where residents discussed their concerns and celebrated their progress. These gatherings weren't just about staying vigilant, they were about keeping the spirit of unity alive. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of Hidden Valley's story continued to spread. Other towns inspired by its transformation reached out for guidance, eager to replicate its success. Advocacy groups used Hidden Valley as a case study, citing it as proof that even deeply rooted corruption could be dismantled through persistence and community effort. Ethan found himself in high demand, invited to speak at conferences and workshops on civic reform. While he was honored by the recognition, he remained focused on ensuring that Hidden Valley itself remained a shining example of what was possible. The final reckoning came not in the courtroom, but in the hearts and minds of Hidden Valley's residents. As the town settled into its new reality, lingering divisions surfaced. Some residents, still loyal to Travis and Cole or simply skeptical of change, began to question the longevity of the reforms. Others, emboldened by the town's success, pushed for even more aggressive measures, fearing that complacency would allow old habits to return. The tension threatened to unravel the fragile unity that had been so painstakingly built. Ethan responded by leaning into the very principles that had guided him from the beginning: transparency, empathy, and inclusion. He called for a town-wide summit, inviting every resident to participate in shaping the future of Hidden Valley. The event, held in the newly built community center, was a powerful moment of collective reflection. Ethan opened the proceedings with a heartfelt address, acknowledging the challenges they had faced and the work that still lay ahead. "This isn't about forgetting the past," he said, his voice steady. "It's about using it as a foundation to build something better, together." The summit lasted well into the evening, with residents sharing their fears, hopes, and ideas. Heated debates arose, but so did moments of profound understanding. By the end of the night, the town had reached a consensus. Hidden Valley's journey wasn't over, but its people were committed to walking it together. They formalized new community initiatives, including a rotating leadership council to ensure that power remained decentralized and accountable. It was a bold experiment in governance, one that reflected the town's hard-earned wisdom. As the weeks turned into months, the results of these efforts became evident. Hidden Valley thrived, its streets once marked by fear now bustling with activity and pride. New businesses opened, schools implemented programs on ethics and civic engagement, and the police department, under Ethan's continued leadership, became a model of transparency and community partnership. Visitors from neighboring towns marveled at the transformation, eager to learn from the example Hidden Valley had set. For Ethan, the journey had been both exhausting and profoundly rewarding. He had come to Hidden Valley as a stranger, but he had found a home among its people. The challenges they had faced together had forged bonds that would not easily break. One evening, as he walked through the square, now illuminated by strings of lights and filled with laughter, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The pole where he'd been humiliated stood no longer. In its place was a monument inscribed with the words, "Justice prevails when unity endures." The legacy of Hidden Valley's transformation extended far beyond its borders. Documentaries, articles, and advocacy campaigns continued to share its story, inspiring countless others to confront corruption and embrace the power of community action. Laws were passed at the state and federal levels. Informed by the lessons learned from the town's struggle, Hidden Valley had become more than a place. It was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the enduring belief that even the smallest voices could make a difference. As Ethan reflected on the journey, he knew that the fight for justice was never truly over. New challenges would arise, both in Hidden Valley and beyond, but he was confident that the town was prepared to face them. Together, they had proven that no matter how deep the darkness, the light of truth and unity could shine through. And so Hidden Valley's story serves as a reminder to us all. No matter how daunting the challenge, change is possible when people come together with courage, compassion, and determination. What will you do to make a difference in your own community? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and transformation. And so, the story of Hidden Valley leaves us with an undeniable truth. No matter how oppressive the shadows, the light of unity and justice can break through. But remember, this isn't just a story, it's a call to action. In every corner of the world, there are hidden valleys waiting for someone to stand up, speak out, and inspire change. Perhaps that someone is you. If this story moved you, if it inspired you to believe in the power of resilience and collective action, we invite you to become part of this growing community. Hit the subscribe button now and join us for more stories that uplift, empower, and spark change. And while you're here, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us, "I am the light that breaks through darkness," or leave a message of hope for others to read. Your words could be the spark that ignites someone else's courage. Don't stop here. Check out our other videos filled with lessons of triumph, transformation, and the power of the human spirit. Together, we can learn, grow, and make a difference. Subscribe, share, and let's keep this movement alive. Until next time, thank you for watching, and remember, change starts with us.